What's up, everybody? I am Brandon. For those of you who follow me, I am the guy doing the 400-mile triathlon called the Try for Hope. The Try for Hope is a improbable goal that starts in Hell, Michigan to Paradise, Michigan. It's a 4-day triathlon that goes over 400 miles, and I've been training for this for quite a while. So I'm here with Lara. Lara works for Michigan Psychological. And I first met Lara by putting together the Delta College Mental Health Fair, which we've had 3 now. Lara has been a great asset in the mental health and someone that I could reach out to talk about mental health resources, mental health in general. Lara has gone above and beyond and helped me get a therapist at Michigan Psychological we've worked out very well, and just a great asset in the mental health community. Putting together the Try for Hope, there's a lot of moving parts. And Lara and Michigan Psychological has decided to help out and be a part of my sponsorship, which I greatly appreciate. And this is going to be good for both of us, because I'm really excited that I'll be able to have mental health resources and be like, hey, my sponsors, this is what they do. And that's kind of what we're here to talk about today. One of the many things that I talk about is the different modalities. I was on medications for a long time. I've gone through cognitive behavioral therapy and dialectical behavioral therapy, and the medications weren't working for me. And I found mushrooms and exercise. And I tell people all the time that I'm not against medications. Medications have their place. But if what is not working for you, don't lose hope. Right now, there's so many different modalities going on, And that's why we're here today, is I wanted Lara to come talk about some of those different modalities that Michigan Psychological offers, because it's not just like it was 30 years ago, where the doctor's like, all there is medicine, or like ECT, electric shock therapy, where they're like shocking you. There's so many different modalities, so
yeah. Well,
thanks for coming.
Of course, thank you for having me. We were so happy to sponsor you, one, because you're breaking the stigma on mental health and really reaching so many different people, all while showing that there is different ways to do it. So everybody has a different experience. Everybody has something different that works for them. And we've talked about, in my experience, I've had to tell therapists that I want my therapy to be conducted a different way than most people do. So a lot of people like the gentle, lead me through the decisions that you made that got you to this point. I want somebody to be like, why did you do that? That wasn't smart. Why did you do that? Because I need the reality check. But that's where a good therapist comes in handy. You can tell them what your goals are, how you need therapy to be conducted, and they're going to help and figure out what modality of therapy is going to work best for you. So whether it's CBT, CPT, EMDR, DBT, there's all of these different ways that therapy can be conducted, and they all stand for something different, and they all run a little bit differently. So Michigan Psychological Care has in-person and virtual options. We do individual, group, family, and couples counseling, psychological evaluations, and psychiatric services. So if you came to me and you're like, hey Lara, I think I have ADHD, I'd be like, great, let's get you tested. We're going to do the testing. We're going to get you in for therapy, and then if you want, we're going to get you in for medication management. Now, you don't have to do all of the working parts, though that we highly suggest it. Even if you're going in for medication management, that doesn't mean we're going to push meds onto you and tell you have to take them. You can meet with our psychiatric nurse practitioner and say, this is what I'm experiencing, and she's not going to make you take meds. That's not how Michigan Psychological Care works. So you have access to all of these different mental health professionals to guide you in the path that you need, rather than what everybody else thinks you need. And that's important for healthcare in general, is you are an individual person and what works best for you, rather than the general population.
Right. So it's a specific plan for each person.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So you get to lead your therapy. If you want to do more talking, if you want to work on feelings, CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, that's great. If you're not necessarily a huge talker and you've got some trauma from your past that maybe you can't remember it all, or you don't really have the capability of verbalizing what's going on, well, great, then we have EMDR. If you want to do a little bit of art therapy because you can't verbalize, but you're really good with your creativity, great. Then let's throw some art therapy in there, and we can kind of figure out what's going on through all of these different modalities. And you don't have to choose just one. Your therapist can use all of them, some of them, just one of them. Whatever works for your care, it is specifically for you and what you need.
All right. So you just talked about ADHD, and I want to jump on that. Like, let's talk about a specific example. Mm-hmm. So I have ADHD, and people with ADHD a lot of times have problem with forward and reverse thinking when they're making a decision. So for example, a lot of times in my past, rather than processing a situation, an obstacle, something that happened in my life, I would simply react to it, right? And the reason I reacted to it is because I didn't sit and process what happened in the past and then use future thinking for possible outcomes of reacting to the situation, right? So for example, cognitive behavioral therapy helps. It taught me the skills to sit and think for a moment before reacting, process, like it's very difficult for me to do that rather than just like responding.
Yep.
But to sit and just think, okay, what are the possible outcomes? How can this be solved? And that's what cognitive behavioral therapy did for me.
Yep. And DBT is kind of similar in that sense, where it's working with really strong emotions and helping you figure out where best to place them.
Right.
Instead of being super reactionary, you can sit, feel, and then react.
Right.
And so there's all of these different ways and skills that therapists can teach you. And then outside of just therapy, there is obviously exercise, which has worked for you, but it's not that just exercise worked. So you like to go through the process of seeking every avenue of help,
right.
And that's incredible because a lot of people stop at one, whereas all of these things could be helping you.
Yeah.
So to kind of use them in conjunction with one another, that's going to help you get your best
right.
care.
And I talk a lot about the psilocybin and the microdosing and stuff, and I tell people without the therapy, I would have just reverted to that old fixed mindset Brandon and self-medicated my problems and like gone back down into a hole.
Yeah.
Like the psilocybin presented an opportunity, exercise presented the opportunity, but I would not be able to train every day without the therapy, without someone teaching me the skills that I have to use to go to the gym every day, to do that 20-mile run when I don't want to that day. Like to force yourself to go. And that's where therapy really has, came in, is like, it's the positive coping skills that you use.
Yep.
It's so easy to say, I'm more comfortable in my bed, or I feel depressed and I can't get out of bed, or getting out of bed is impossible for me today, right? And I believe a lot of that, like choosing to do that, to stay in bed, is a negative coping skill, right? So like through therapy, the positive coping skills, I have learned not just one, but several to get me out of bed. Right?
And it's okay to also take a day for self-care, but it's when you fall into that rut where you feel like you can't get out of it, where it's negatively impacting your life.
Right.
And we actually talked earlier about how different therapists work for different people.
Right.
Sometimes you need to try 1, 2, 3 of them to get to the right person, but it's also that you have to be ready for therapy, because if you go in and you're like, yep, I'm gonna do therapy, and then you sit there and you lie to your therapist, you're not really putting in the effort, you cancel your sessions last second or all the time, you're not really putting in the effort to get better.
Right.
Whereas when you sit there and you really put in the effort and you say, okay, I'm gonna give my all in therapy right now, I'm gonna explain what happened in the past, what happened now, where I would like to be, and how I plan to get there, and utilize the tools and the resources that they give me, you're going to get so much farther than just going to therapy and sitting there because you think it's going to help just sitting there.
Right.
I like to explain to people, and you've heard this before, that a lot of people think therapy, if they've never done it before, is like what they see on movies, where you walk into an office and it's gloomy and raining and gross outside and everything is gray and not pretty outside. You lay down on a couch for an hour and you're spilling your guts to this therapist, and then an hour later it's sun shining and there's butterflies flying around, and you're like walking on, you're like, I'm walking on sunshine.
Right.
Whoa, that's not what it's like.
No.
A lot of times you feel worse after the first session because you're getting through things that you weren't expecting to have to talk about, that you're digging into things that have hurt you in the past. But continuing to go and work through those feelings is what gets you through those feelings, not over those feelings. And I always say it's better to get through them than over them, because you might come up to them again and now you know how to get through them.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And that goes along with like I talk all the time about having a growth mindset, you know, having a growth versus fixed mindset. And having a fixed mindset and going to a therapist, sitting on the couch, crossing your arms and your legs, and just like you're there because you're being forced to be there, but you don't think you need to be there.
Yep.
Well, obviously someone's telling you that you need therapy for a reason. So like having a growth mindset of thinking, maybe I do have something going on that I need to change. Let's listen and see if I can learn something from this.
Yeah.
You know? And you can't go into therapy with a fixed mindset and solve your problems. You
Right.
have to go in there wanting to change, knowing that I have these negative coping skills. That's negatively impacting my life.
Yep.
Whatever they may be. And want to change. And that's how therapy is going to help.
Yep.
You know?
And a lot of people think they have to be at the lowest of low points to get into therapy, but therapy can also just be self-care, where you don't have to be struggling to get out of bed and not able to brush your teeth, and you don't have to be at rock bottom to seek therapy. A lot of people utilize it just as a resource for consistency and making sure that they're ready for anything that comes in the future.
Right.
So I always tell people that tomorrow, hopefully it's not, might be the worst day of your life, and do you have the tools, the skills, and the resources to get through tomorrow?
Right.
And if you don't, one of the great options of therapy is you don't have to have something going on to be in therapy.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's great to just get prepared for those instances, and you can always better yourself. You're never going to be perfect.
Right.
And so to utilize these to get better and better and better until you're very happy with where you are, who you are. And that's not to say you're not going to have to go back later on. You can graduate therapy and have to go back years later. And
Right.
that is okay, and that is normal.
Right. Yeah, I believe, like after you were talking, I say this thing a lot to me. If you're not changing, you're choosing. Right? If you're not changing every day, or if you're changing to become a better person every day, you're choosing to be the person that you are. And if you're angry at that person that you are because you don't feel that you are at where you want to be at in life, the only person stopping you is you.
Yep.
You know, and that's where the whole therapy and wanting to change and stuff.
Yep.
So,
Growth only ever happens with change.
right.
You can't grow unless something changes. Think about a flower. It's not going to grow out of the ground that's been neglected and dried up and isn't getting watered, but when you weed around it and you fertilize the soil and you start watering it, that flower is going to grow. Change has to happen for growth to occur.
That's really good. I like
Oh,
that.
thanks.
So yeah, if you're out there and you're battling with mental health, I want you to remember one thing. No matter how big and bad you think you are, there's someone bigger and badder talking about their feelings. And if you're at a point in your life where you're going to therapy, you're doing all the right things, you're taking all the medications, and what you're doing you feel is not working, don't lose hope. There are so many different modalities out there to help people that if it's not working for you, find something else. Self-advocate for yourself and say, this is not working, what else can I do? What else can I try? Constantly try to change and become better and better yourself. So on that note, what's the best way to contact Michigan Psychological?
I am a great resource to reach out to, but we have several different ways to get in contact. A lot of people will have access to you because they're seeing your posts, they're seeing your journey, and you have access to me. You know how to get a hold of me. My email is Lara, Lara .HAKA, M as in Mary, AKI @ccmcpsych.com. Our website has a section, it says contact us at the top, and you can actually contact the individual office or just in general. And it is HIPAA compliant, so it's not going to anybody except for me. I have to log in and get this information. And that is www.michiganpsychologicalcare.com. You can call any of our offices and just use the general number. You can click which office you'd like to talk to, 989-292-3572. And outside of that, I manage our Facebook and really any way that you can get a hold of Michigan Psychological Care. You look it up on Google and it'll take you to 10 different places. I manage all of those. So you'll be able to get a hold of me, and if you'd like to get a hold of me directly, reach out to Brandon, and he has my cell phone number. So if you're in immediate need, he'll get you a hold of me.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. If you're out there and you're in immediate need also, don't forget about 988. If you feel like you're stuck, and I all the time I tell people this, one of the hardest things you're going to do is pick up that phone and dial 988, and that's another great resource. If you want contacts for Michigan Psychological, let me know. Hit up Laura. Thanks for tuning in. Click like, subscribe. You know what to do. Thank you.